What a privilege to be able to bring our speakers together for a panel discussion. You've heard from all of them as they presented earlier, and now I'm joined here by Dr. Abdul Ghani Mohammed, joining us from Australia, Dr. Shanli, who is joining us from Malaysia, Sir Arjun Putri Edaka, who is joining from Singapore, and Mr. Ophir Bar-Levav, who is joining us from Israel. So this is a truly international panel. Wonderful. All right, so let's start the ball rolling. And actually have a question on what you gentlemen think would be the definition of an intelligent drone. You know, people could define intelligent differently. So are they autonomous? Are they visual? So we'd like to hear what each of our panelists think. What are the three distinct features of an intelligent drone? Let me start with Dr. Abdul Ghani.
Oh, thank you. I guess maybe it'll be a good point for me to share screen just to show some of the framework that we published that defines what we think, I guess, is the definition of an intelligent drone. Hopefully, you can see my screen now. Is that viewable?
Yes, we can
Yes.
see that now.
Okay. So this is a bit of a complex diagram, but I'll try to break it down. So I guess what you can see here is what I presented in my presentation in terms of the sense, plan, and act cycle within a control system. So you can see here that this sort of, if you just look at the actuation part, and if you imagine that there's a pilot controlling that, then that would be the sort of lowest level of autonomy. I'll just scroll to the right there, if I can just zoom out. Um, so you can see the lowest level of autonomy being remotely piloted, obviously, or no autonomy at all. And then it increases as you start considering, for example, a system that senses and plans and then leads to the actuation. And that increases once again to an intelligent aircraft system, which includes those three components: inference, reasoning, and unsupervised learning. But then the level of, I guess, autonomy increases or intelligence increases if you start considering a swarm of aircraft sort of passing on that level of inference, reasoning, and learning to the rest of the swarm, and sort of doing cooperative sensing, cooperative planning, and cooperative navigation. So that would be my thoughts, I guess.
Thank you so much. How about Dr. Shan? Can we hear from you? Your thoughts on this?
Hello. Yeah, I think Dr. Abdul Ghani has put it very well. I also think that to be able to be categorized as an intelligent drone, the first, the first requirement, the prerequisite, will be to navigate itself without any human input. So we will be giving the drone some high level inputs, like for example, do this task. But how would you want it to do it? That's up for the drone to decide. How to navigate itself from point A to point B, where there will be obstacles in the middle, and there will be weather changes and many other factors that will stop the drone from doing its work. And if the drone is able to navigate itself from point A to point B by gathering data beforehand or at the same time doing the feedback, I would say that's an intelligent drone.
Cool. And Arjun, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I second what Dr. Abdul Ghani and Dr. Lee had mentioned just now. So just to add on to it, just to summarize what I feel about what are the three main parts. First one is perceiving the environment. So an intelligent drone should be able to perceive its environment much better than a standard drone, let's say. So it should be able to identify its environments, its parameters all around it. And second one is going to be the analytics that it can perform. So it's not only the data that it collects, because everything happens in a real-time basis. So the system should be able to analyze the data and generate results or outputs, on the go, on the fly. And thirdly, I feel that the most important element for a system to be intelligent is in terms of safety, because safety has always been one of the concerns when we talk about drones. So if the artificial intelligence system or any other sensor based systems which can ensure high level of safety for the system, I believe that defines an intelligent drone.
Thanks. And Ophir, what do you think are the three distinct features of an intelligent
Yeah,
drone?
I think a lot of my colleagues here have outlined all excellent points. Maybe the only one I would add, because most of the rest was already said, is the full autonomous cycle of a system. So I mean, being in applied, if I'm taking less the scientific approach, but more kind of the applied technology aspect of drones and the use cases they manage, the ability to work day in, day out, without any assistance or supervision, is what for us kind of defines true intelligence and and independence in a way. So getting from point A to point B is obviously a must, but it's also returning to whatever point you need to get, making sure you have enough juice or battery for the next mission, and then maintaining those ongoing, day in, day out, basically without humans needing to intervene unless they need to make specific decisions we do not want drones to make.
Right, right. So now we've established how we define an intelligent drone. Now let's look at how you think man and machine can work together, and how can the different workflows accommodate this collaboration. We have an interesting mix of industries and segments where our panelists focus in. And so now, questions, experts. How can humans leverage the technologies you've been talking about into their process workflow? Maybe I start like with Ofer this time.
Sure. Thanks. So I think we really started in robotics or Dando with that actually challenge, because what we've been seeing in those smart building or building environments is that humans are not really happy with the way things are going. So instead of humans focusing on what humans do best, which is decision making based on quality data, we've seen humans spend too much time in basic, dull, dirty, dangerous data collection tasks. Obviously, humans can do that because but we're not very good at it. We make mistakes. We are prone to error. We make assumptions on the data. We don't really objectively collect data, right? We always kind of collect data from a certain position, and I think this is where we thought drones or autonomous drones could really help humans, because the drones will do, I would say, the most the most enhanced and quality data collection side. They could take some decisions themselves if they were allowed to, but then they really leave the decision making or the important decision making to the humans that kind of overseeing these solutions. And this is really where we see the sweet spots of drones and humans interacting in the building space.
Okay, Arjun, what are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, so this is a very interesting question. So let me speak for the warehousing industry and warehousing segment. And I believe that humans and these machines need to interact very closely with each other. And first of all, what we do as a process is to understand what are the existing process flows that customers do use inside their warehouse. So let's say if it is a stock taking process, there are particular steps that most of the processes are done in a way. So we understand that, and we see which are the areas where people are having trouble with. So let's say if it's human based stock counting, first is it's a very tedious process, and you have to climb up heights in terms of doing the scanning. It causes safety hazard and safety risk as well. So safety is at stake here, and at the same time, accuracy of the inventory is also at risk, because usually it is said that from a warehousing perspective, if someone goes and does a stock taking, he can be productive only for like 47 pallets per hour. So that is the rate at which humans could do, be it the case with any kind of humans. And at the same time, when you deploy a fully automated system, it can do 1200 pallet locations per hour. So you can see it is almost like 25 times in terms of the productivity and the efficiency it can bring into the entire process. So these are certain areas where it needs to be digitalized, and so that people can look and do other productive ways of working. And especially in the warehousing industry segment, it is not attracting too much of talent, because these are all mundane tasks which people are not interested in doing. So there is another angle to it as well. So if all these mundane tasks can be done in a safe way using the drone system, then they could focus on other productive ways of working, where human brain is much better than an automated system. So this is how I feel we need to look at the process and how it needs to interact with each other.
All right, let's hear from Dr. Shan. How is it like in Malaysia?
Yeah, the way that intelligent drones work, right? So we have been working. I'll list out some of the examples of work that we've done. Right now, we're trying to solve the one of the biggest challenge that we're trying to solve is the vehicle routing problem. We're quite involved with the drone delivery process, so we know that it's a huge optimization problem that people tend to miscalculate, and then we will make redundant trips around. And then if we were to employ drones to run around and I mean to fly around the map, we would like to do it in the most in the shortest path possible. So one of the tricky things that we're trying to solve is the vehicle routing problem, and whether the drones they have enough battery or not, it is it is another crucial part of the equation that we need to take into account. How heavy we are transporting, and then how much battery we have in how much battery we have in the battery capacity. Those things they do matter actually in when we are trying to solve these kind of problems in the large scale. So think of this as if it's only one drone, it's still okay. But if you have like 100 agents running around, and then you have different altitudes to play with, because in Malaysia we are allowed to fly from 80 meters to 120 meters. We have 40 meters to play with. So this becomes a very complex problem, and AI, reinforced learning will be able to help us out when we try to tackle these kind of problems. So the optimization is the optimization of these kind of problems can be solved more quickly if we were to introduce some kind of machine learning, preferably reinforcement learning in these kind of problems. And for agriculture wise, it's not too much of a there's not too much need of intelligent drones to be honest. We just need to deploy them and then just have them flying around, collecting data, and then the intelligence will come afterwards at the post-processing. So that's my take.
All right, Dr. Abdul Ghani, how do you think can man and machine work together?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities for sort of human-machine interaction and sort of supporting each other. And there is, I guess, from what I've seen in terms of industry's requirements and some of the applications that we worked on, it's quite a increasing sort of a growing area, especially to try and make the systems intuitive for operators without the need to try and delve into the details or and it's easy to adapt the technology. We've seen that with, for example, examples of working with first responders, fire brigades, trying to in a sense co-support human elements. There are applications you would want to replace the human element entirely, if there's a risky sort of operation or there's risk to the human. But there are situations where you want them to actually support the human elements, whether it's being firefighters entering a building and you want to have the drones go in there and sort of scope out the situation, which is very relevant to some of the things that Arjun and Ofer mentioned. Otherwise, there's other applications like, for example, inspection of whether it's being infrastructure. I've seen inspection of aircraft at airports, airport hangars using drones, which would save a lot of time and effort with respect to having people go on top of the structure of the vehicle itself. So I think there is definitely lots of opportunities there. I've even seen companies that approached us from a research perspective as a research institute to try and see whether we can sort of prototype and co-develop vehicles that would do very unique applications, like, for example, testing the hooks that, for example, window cleaners would hook onto on skyscrapers to clean the windows on the side, because they need to do that as part of the certification, for example. So there's all sorts of unique applications, and airborne drones or flying robots can certainly help in that aspect.
All right, so now let's talk about regulations. And this is very important. How can airspace regulators make the collaborations that you just mentioned happen? What do they need to look into? So let's start with Arjun. Um,
Yeah. Sorry.
okay,
Yeah.
yes, there
Yeah.
you go. Now we can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the question. I believe regulations are very important, and specifically in terms of deciding in which direction a particular industry could go. So let's say if the regulations are too stringent, then it becomes, the industry might not be able to proceed further. So regulations are very crucial in terms of even for outdoor applications or for indoor applications as well. So what I feel is that there is no unified standard as of now available. So each country has their own set of rules based on their economic conditions and different aspects of things. They generate their own set of rules, and it is very different from the other regions as well. So I believe that, once this is the initial gestation period, and after that, once all the data is collected, I believe there could be a unified data or unified set of regulations that most of the industries could follow. Then it would be much of standardization, and we could take these solutions to different regions and in different areas as well. And since being in Singapore, I could say that Singapore is one of the places where the rules are very strict, and I've seen this entire process move from from the early stages till as of now. And it has been very meticulously planned and carefully thought of as well. So initially, when it was started, the CAS collect quite a lot of data from each of the vendors, understood what are the pain points, what needs to be sorted out, and they introduced different set of rules in different phases. So even if you look at 2021, there were a few rules that happened in February, a few changes that happened in May 2021 as well. Specifically talking about the warehousing segment, previously for indoor applications, there were no restrictions in terms of using a system because it's a closed environment. It's considered as a private property. You do it. For outdoor, there were quite a lot of restrictions. Now, what I see is that some of the restrictions are coming into the indoor space as well, which I believe is quite good. Because ultimately it is the aviation and the public safety, and also if it is an indoor environment, it's the safety of the people that are working in. If safe, so I see that it's mostly related to safety that is happening, where we need to give a risk assessment for the particular area in terms of an activity permit. So there are a few rules and regulations that are there, which previously was there for outdoors. Now we are seeing it for indoors. But I think these are all for good. But if there can be a unified set of rules, that would be perfect.
All right. Dr. Abdul Ghani, are you seeing the same thing? Do you think indoor drones may need less regulation compared to outdoor? Is it more difficult to put regulations for urban drones?
It certainly is, and it's a big challenge. It's a big security challenge as well, and we are seeing, let's say, an abuse of this technology in various sectors. It's quite challenging, and one of the hard things for regulators is you can put all the rules you want. Policing them is a whole different story. And there are some discussions around how can you actually enforce those regulations, and that in itself is quite a challenge. But there's several, let's say, bodies within, let's say, the Australian government and within also industry that are trying to tackle that and look at that. We've all seen what happened in the UK a few years back when the airport was sort of attacked by some of those drones. So it's very hard from that perspective. So I think that the regulations need to balance the security, but also the flexibility to make sure that you're empowering, businesses with this new technology. Certainly, outdoor sort of environments is very challenging compared to indoors, and I think there should be a difference in regulations. In Australia currently, anything that's indoor doesn't apply. It doesn't have the same restrictions as outdoors. So maybe Australia is also one of the more relaxed, has one of the more relaxed regulations around the world, and that had definitely its pros, and our regulation body is really heavily relying on common sense of people. But you're always going to have people who really test the system, and that can be quite a challenge.
Right. That's another panel discussion for us to work on. But Dr. Shan, are there any specific challenges in regulating drones used in agriculture?
Well, to be honest, it's very difficult to enforce, especially when you're in the rural areas people are using drones and they will be using drones to cultivate their land. And even though there are restrictions and regulations in Malaysia specific to agricultural drones, it is very difficult to enforce, like what Dr. Abdul Ghani had said. Well, the industrial applications, for example, for those who fly, that the drones that fly longer distances beyond visual line of sight, those will be more. I think the priority should be on the beyond visual line of sight drones where you cover long distances, and the regulators are starting to notice about that, and then we are seeing more and more they are structuring up and then writing more regulation in terms of how to maintain communications for example for the long distance drones. As for the agriculture ones, even though there are some rules, but people really do not follow, and it is very hard to enforce. We will be looking for a method or some way to help to regulate this industry.
All right. So, Ophir, what are some of the regulations which must be considered to ensure the success of intelligent drones?
So to be honest, I think in regards to outdoor, my colleagues have, I think, answered that very well. Indoor, one of the reasons we operate indoors, and in many cases people ask us, can you operate also outdoors? And we say, absolutely no. Not because, the technology, because simply we want to avoid regulation. And one nice thing about indoor, that currently there is no regulation that we are familiar with, at least in the markets that we operate for indoors. What customers are more concerned about indoors is less the regulation and more the safety, because you're operating in a very, and I think Arjun alluded to that in a prior comment, you're working in a very close, confined, packed spaces. The space changes all the time. It's enough that someone moves the box or leaves for us, in many cases, the cleaning person leaves the cleaning cart. It's just on our route, in the middle of the night, or maintenance people leave a ladder that we need to bypass. And drones carrying lithium-ion batteries, are potentially could also be prone to fire or to explode. So really, it's more the safety aspects that customers are really looking at, less kind of government regulatory bodies that are currently looking into this space. I assume that the more we see people actually adopting these solutions, some of these maybe safety concerns will convert into regulatory, actions by regulators, as customers will want to get some more, I would say, a comfort that you're meeting certain specifications and certain regulations before they implement your solution, indoors. But currently, we're happy to kind of navigate in this uncharted territory, at least regulatory-wise.
All right, thank you so much for all your insights. I'd like to check the chat and see if anyone from the audience would like to pose a question to our panelists. We may have time to answer one or two. So if you have a burning question, feel free to type it on the chat box. It's there on your right side, and maybe we can take it with our panelists. And I see none. I think we have a very quiet audience, but I'm sure they all learned a lot from all our speakers. So I actually now would like to ask a final question, or a visioning question to our panelists. So, gentlemen, if you can define or envision future drones, what would they be like? Are they bigger, smaller? How would have we solved the battery issues? Can you describe what they can do? So let's start with, who do I start with? Okay, let's start with Ophir. I see you first on my screen. So yeah, what is your vision? What's your vision of a future drone?
So for us, it's a good question, because we talk about it a lot. So, obviously we're very consumed with the next 12, 24 months, but we always talk about, so what's next once we solve that. So for us, really the vision is for drones, especially in indoors, to be part of a bigger robotics ecosystem that would operate indoors. And we really believe that this ecosystem could be the consciousness of what we call kind of the building as a living organism, meaning that it will be aware of anything that is going on in the building and be able to make life for the occupants of that building, whether this is a commercial space or a residential space, much better, easier, better quality. So it will know. Take the most simple example. You walk out of a meeting room, right? You have chairs all over the place. Maybe some people left glasses, and maybe someone actually bumped the chair into the wall, and you have those dark lines, on the side. So once you walk out, robots, come in, they will put the chairs in the place, they will clean the table. A robot may even come and paint, the wall. I'm exaggerating a bit, but really this is kind of the vision of the robotics, and drones will play a very big part in this because they are the most mobile and agile, device of all in terms of the ability to operate in different spaces. They would really provide this consciousness and seamlessly will enable the building occupants to kind of enjoy a better experience.
Yeah, isn't it exciting to be able to see that? Now,
yeah,
okay.
we think so. Some people think it's frightening, but we see it as exciting.
And what's exciting is on this panel are the people who are actually making that happen. So see, that's the power of this discussion. So Dr. Shan, how do you envision the future drones?
All right, imagine this. Picture this. 1 week, 7 days. You can choose to work 1 day, or you can just choose to not work at all. Everything is done by the robots. Agriculture sector, right? 5 a.m. tractors start to roll themselves out automatically to cultivate the farmlands. Drones will start to spray the pesticides, and then the plants will start to grow. Another robot drone will start to take care of the farm animals. And then when the plants grow and then it's time to harvest, the robots will go and harvest. They are already tomato pickers, grape pickers, things like that. They will pick up all the food and then ship it with self-driving trucks, ship it all the way to the market. The market will sort them up like Amazon, autonomous, to the shelf. We, the people, will go to the grocery store, pick up that food, go home. Amazon has done that. No checkout grocery stores, right? Take whatever you want, leave, and then it will just bill to you. And then because all these things are done by the robots, food will cost very little. So we can afford to work maybe 1 day or 2 days a week. The rest of the time, people will be able to enjoy and then to do something more creative to improve the efficiency of the robots to make things even cheaper. So that's what I envision. And if you buy something online, you should be able to get it within 1 hour because you should have drones that are able to get things from the warehouse automated, like Mr. Arjun's system, right? You have something that automates your warehouse, sort everything out, get that stuff, drones will pick it up, go straight to your apartment, drop it off. Less than 1 hour. So that will be life.
Wonderful. That's another amazing depiction of what you envision with drones and robots.
Thanks.
It's got me starting to think about having that farm. We should talk after this.
So,
yeah.
An apple will cost maybe just 10 cents, something like that.
Isn't that amazing? All right. And working once a week. If you choose to, right? If you choose to. All right. So Arjun, what is your vision on how intelligent today's drones will evolve into?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a 5 year or a 10 year period, so let me just split into two parts, right? So one, you have the hardware and then you have the software. So the trend that I'm currently seeing, and which is something which I feel is going to continue for some more years, maybe until 2030, is that the hardwares are going to get commoditized, meaning to say that, hardware will reach a certain level of saturation. I'm not talking about the battery. Yes, battery, definitely there is a big deficit in terms of technology that needs to be done. But all other aspects of a drone would become a commodity. It's just plain hardware. Now it becomes the software or the technology stack that makes the sense. and that is going to build revenue for companies, and then help companies to grow as well, because they can increase and develop their technology stack as well. So this is something which I foresee. So it is in the software portion that quite a lot of stuff can be done. A lot of interesting researches are happening on the AI portion, which can be deployed. So that truly, in a sense, would take the drones to any kind of industry in terms of the application as well. So just to summarize, like how I see it inside a warehouse, let's say, or maybe in any other location, is that it's not a single drone. It will be a swarm of drones which will be communicating with each other. They are cloud connected. They are API enabled. Uh, they are AI enabled, and they are able to do their tasks. So I think this is something that I envision going forward. And hopefully, if the battery technology improves, we don't need a tethered system to be used. But yeah. So that is definitely something which I'm looking forward to as well.
That's great. Thank you so much, Arjun. And so, Dr. Abdul Ghani, you'll be the last panelist to be sharing your thoughts, and which means this is actually the closing remarks of some sort. How do you envision these drones will evolve into?
I think no, I agree with a lot of the comments that were made, and what we've seen was there's been a lot of focus just from the start of when drones and specifically airborne robotics started. There was a lot of focus on the vehicle itself and getting that sort of sorted and giving it enough autonomy so that it undertakes specific tasks. And then we're seeing that, as Arjun mentioned, there's a significant peak at the moment to try and really, let's not worry about the platform. Let's really focus on the AI, the software. Let's give it the intelligence. But I think what's going to happen after some time is it's going to asymptote, and we're going to see a focus back again on the vehicle to try and modify it to really enable then the software to do specific tasks, especially with the I guess the growing interest in very unique applications. Whether you need to stick a robotic arm on a drone, for example. How do you do that? You probably need to modify the vehicle itself, especially with also new technologies and sensors being added to the vehicles. So that would be my thoughts. I think from what I've seen and from the large number of weird and wacky applications that we've been approached as a university to try and do, from lifting heavy cables, 50 kilograms, flying to carry people or whatnot. I think it's a very it's a difficult answer to question to answer, because it varies. It's such a large sort of thing, right? Like different sizes, personal transportation to very small drones that you can wear, for example. So it's I think we're headed in the right direction. And based on what Dr. Sheehan said, I imagine probably in the future we'd want to invest in our own drones so that we can get some income from, if they're going to do all the work. Maybe we replace the stock market with the drone market or something. So, but so thank you.
Cool. See, there are so many collaborations that I think will be starting from here. In fact, Ophir, I think there's a message on the chat that you may want to take. It depends whether you want the public to know about it or you want to discuss with him. Someone's interested about the Tando drone. And yep, that's really wonderful. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your insights, exciting us even more on how the world of drones will look like.